live up to that if there was something like this that
Is that
happened.
just transit, or is that all of
No,
them?
it's railroads too, much greater on-time performance for railroads as well.
Did they specify what all of
Yes,
them are?
yes, they sure do.
Andrew?
I have it in my director's desk, yes.
Yeah, question regarding the R179, I'm sorry, Bert. Regarding the R179, you know, since they started that one full set 10-car train on the A line, which you can also find it also on YouTube, I have seen it a couple of times running, actually, it looked like it was a race versus the 32s, and that train moves faster.
Well, they're on the C line as well, and
But
I've heard quite a lot.
I'm familiar, I know it's on the C, but this is the first time they started
They're nice
on,
cars.
Yeah, they started on a Sunday, they started at Euclid Avenue and made it as an extra A, just for that morning. But what a lot of people like to see is when the train does come in to the station, you're still seeing some glitches on the train that it doesn't say A to where. Because some of these
Funny you should say that, because yesterday on a northbound C, after the board meeting that I was on,
yeah.
the sign as I was approaching Canal Street said, "Next stop, Shepherd Avenue." And everybody raced to get out, and then everyone assured them that it was an uptown train and it was just wrong. And obviously someone told the conductor, and within 30 seconds, it was reset and was reading correctly. So, you know, it's as good as the setting, needless to say. But that was quite something. Yes, Bert.
I'm delighted that the statistics are going the right way, but do we have a long enough sample? Are we ignoring the fact we've had a very mild winter? The fact that we have above average temperature and almost no snowfall? I mean, all of these things might affect 1 month's statistics.
Well,
It's more like 3 months of improving statistics than just 1 month.
Well, they had to improve.
no, but we've been analyzing them ourselves, and we've been analyzing the year over year since the capital program. We've been doing a lot of analysis.
Right.
And it's not just a
And I'm not thinking
month-to-month
of
comparison,
No,
because I worry about the same thing. So, yeah, this has been an easy January, February, thank goodness. But it's much, the numbers show it's much more than that.
Okay.
But it's to reduce monthly delays by 18,000 is going to be quite a struggle, I would think.
Without a huge infusion of capital money.
Exactly. As you heard earlier, there are now 4 community L-train info sessions scheduled to highlight and explain why the new plan is going to be great, and that's in quotation marks. The first one is March 7th at Our Lady of Guadalupe at St. Bernard, 328 West 14th Street. After that is March 13th at the Williamsburg North Side School, 299 North 7th Street. On March 19th at the Grand Street Campus High School, 850 Grand Street in Brooklyn. And April 8th, the last one will be at the 14th Street Y at 344 East 14th Street. I plan to attend.
6 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Yeah, these are all 6 to 8 p.m.
Thank you.
Andrew, could you email that to us?
Yeah, I will have the absolutely.
So that I
yes,
can
she
get
will.
it out to
Oh,
all
it's on the
people.
website too.
Yes.
No, but people, when you tell people go to the website, when they call and they say where or what, I just want to be able to forward an email, not say go to the website. They have enough other things.
The last thing I want to say is that in some
So
of this,
can you email it from you if you want to? Thank you.
in some of the MTA reorganization talk, mention has been made of term limits on board members. The proposal is that the elected official that that in the case of the county execs, the mayor or the governor's picks, your term would technically expire when that elected official left office. I don't know how it will work with the union and rider reps because the unions and the rider councils don't expire per se. But I asked the general counsel to look into that, so I do not know how that will affect my status or Randy's status or the pending, or Norman Brown or any of the union reps, John Samuelson. So we will see.
Does that hold for us also, since we're all appointed by elected officials?
It's funny you mention that. Lisa will be speaking at an event, and more than once we have mentioned getting a vote for us.
No, but I'm talking about.
The term
I was
average
talking about our terms.
That's what I'm talking about too.
Well, no, so members are separate. This is not the board. These are
yeah.
councils, right? So the language is specific to the board,
Oh, okay.
not to the
That was
councils.
my question.
However, the question that we then extrapolate is, since you all recommend Andrew to the board, who is the actual appointing, body? So that would be TRC, but we need a legal interpretation. We are going to probably ask more than one person, and perhaps somebody on on the committee here, on the council, can help us look at that issue, who has vast experience with the history of TRC.
But Lisa,
Lisa,
the question remains whether some of us are holdovers through several generations of politicians.
Right.
We go back to the Emancipation Proclamation, basically. The question would
We were
be,
freed by Lincoln.
right.
Yeah.
The question would be, is there a consideration of expanding that over our representation as well?
That was my question.
Well, there is, that has not been spoken about. We can certainly,
No, don't ask, because that'll remind
I'm
us.
not gonna ask anybody who would be in a position to do anything but help us, like the electeds. So on the Long Island Railroad Council side, the chair there, Mark Epstein, has actually been engaged in several conversations about giving the board members a vote for the rider representative. So in looking to codify what that means, that would, be looking to see, there's no mention right now of the councils, none whatsoever. I don't think we need there to be, because it needs to be specifically laid out like it is in this congestion pricing.
We're governed by the Public Officers Law, and until your successor is appointed and qualified, you would continue to serve. So unless they change that, and our council could reiterate that, you wouldn't be affected. But it would be impacted in terms of what you're talking about, to propose you or someone.
If no one has brought it up, then it would be better that we just don't bring it up, I think.
Well, we have to bring it up about what it means for the board. We have to know.
Yeah,
it's also not at a point right
asking
now-
about us and who
No,
appoints us.
But it's not at a point right now where it's anything. Right now, it's just,
A proposal.
it's a political football
That's what it is.
proposal.
Among everything else.
And football season is over.
No, it hasn't started yet.
No, they are right now in training, they are right now in training.
Right. Andrew?
Let me just answer what Bert had one thing. Bert, to your point earlier about, was it only during the good weather months that these improvements happen? That's actually a pretty good segue to the report that we're going to be looking at today, because as a result of various pieces of the subway action plan that have taken effect and which are not season specific, you will see some improvements that have actually taken place. And there's no expectation that any part of the subway action plan is going to stop. They're still going to remove water. They're still going to, make sure that refuse is clear, that signals are kept working, and all of those kinds of things. So,
In fact, it specifically mentions, the subway action plan is specifically called out in the congestion pricing proposal, that the funding would be used to continue and complete the subway action plan. Doesn't mention fast forward.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I guess this is really a good segue to Bradley, who has done an amazing job on this report. I've read it several times. We have forwarded to President Byford for his comments.
I just want to say, we think this is a terrific report presentation, and hopefully you will as well. There's a lot of information, so it will be really helpful to write down your questions and save them for the end, because it may very well be that your questions are answered on a later slide. So, thank you.
And so we are very excited to finally be presenting this report to you all. I do want to thank all the council members who participated. If you remember, all that time ago, April, almost 2 years ago, when all of you did your initial station surveys. That was really helpful, and it helped to guide us into what we needed to narrow the scope down to. And what we identified was at the Lex 59th Street station, there was extreme overcrowding and a lack of reliability. And so we wanted to focus on a route, a rider's route every day that goes through that point. And very convenient for me that I was able to do this for 100 days and 100 nights because I live in Astoria, Queens, and travel to Lower Manhattan every day. So I do want to thank you all for helping us with that so we could get this scope narrowed and make this a more meaningful report. This is also a report which there is a lot of data. This is our first report where I say we looked at a very extensive amount of data. After the first month, I stopped counting when I got to about 1 million rows of data, and we did this for 7 months, so it's quite impressive how much data we were able to include into this report and try narrowing it down to make more sense. So, all right, so kind of to set up the presentation, the 5 points in front of you are how we're going to be going through the PowerPoint, so I'll let you digest that. So again, the route, starting at the AM peak at the Broadway station, serves the NW trains in Astoria, Queens, making the transfer to the southbound 405 trains at Lexington Avenue, 59th Street Station, and making its way down to Bowling Green Station in Lower Manhattan, and then we did the exact reverse for the PM peak. Yes, please.
One of the things particular about this route is it's a very high impact route because it covers Bronx riders, Upper East Side, Midtown, Queens, Brooklyn, so it's a very important and a lot of people experience aspects of it.
And Staten Island, you come up.
And Staten
Totally
Island.
It's gotta be interesting, it's Staten Island.
That's, I'm sorry.
Take that out.
And to add what Ellen had just mentioned, is that coming from the Broadway station, there are other options to get to Lower Manhattan. You can board the M and transfer at 14th Street to local R or W service. You can also, if you are fortunate enough to catch a W, you have a 1-seat ride. So there are other options, but like what she just said, we wanted to be able to get the most bang for our buck so that we could get a more comprehensive view of what people are going through. All right. So this is all the survey data that I collected on this journey, which included platform wait times, station dwell times, travel times for the entire length of the route, and also different segments, transfer times, track speeds, crowding, station, stairwell, onboard, trains too full to board because the onboard crowding was too much, the people had to let trains pass by, and also paying attention to what the conductors were saying when these issues occurred.
Brad?
Yeah.
Oh, but this is right at the beginning, because I think I sent a note to somebody.
Judy, can we wait? Yeah, sure.
Only about what was surveyed, because there's something very, unless you included that, and that is
But
because
when you
59
get there,
Street.
can we please just wait, please? Because otherwise, your question may be answered.
I don't think so, because I'm looking at this list, which is what I saw.
But can
I
we
just
please-
want to know if you did anything with the escalators at 59th Street and survey.
you ready?
Yes, how often they broke down.
Okay, so that is a great question, and let's get to that at the end, okay?
Okay, because I
Okay,
don't see
let's
it in the
get,
list of
so let's
things.
get to that at the end. That is a very good question, thank you.
Okay. So for the AUP, we want to know why the trip was so difficult and slow. What we found at the Broadway station that during service delays, there would be severe platform and onboard crowding, making the journey to Queensboro Plaza, we had frequent severe onboard crowding. Lex 59th Street Station had significant stairwell crowding as you transferred from the NW down to 405. Between Lexington 59th Street Station and 14th Street Union Square, the track speeds were excessively slow. And at Queensboro Plaza, Grand Central, and 14th Street, the dwell times were quite long. To give you an overview of the entire trip, according to MK's trip planner, the scheduled trip is supposed to take at the 8 a.m. hour 39 minutes. Our actual average trip times were a little bit less than that at 38 minutes, but you have to remember that it is an average, so it is weighted down. The fastest trip time was 29 minutes, so we know that this trip can take only 29 minutes. However, 32% of the actual trips are above the scheduled time, and we wanted to calculate to see what buffer time you would have to apply to your trip so you could have an on-time arrival. So that buffer time is a little over 9 minutes. So your most reliable trip would be above 47 minutes to make it to Lower Manhattan in time. So, to walk you through the findings of the different stations. At Broadway, we found that 16% of the time, the platform did not clear because the onboard crowds were too much. 15% of the time, the trains left the station full to crush load. And 7% of the time, the platform was extremely crowded. And these are the instances where you had to let multiple trains go by before you could board. Making the journey down to Queensboro Plaza, we have a lot of 7 train riders who do the cross-platform transfer to NW service. And with that, 61% of the trains left the station full to crush load. And 17% of the time, the platform did not clear because of the onboard crowds. Making our way into the transfer point at Lex 59th Street, coming in from Queensboro Plaza, as I just mentioned, 61% of the trains arrive full to crush load. As you're going through the platform, going to the stairs to the 405 platform, the 67% of the time there was extreme platform crowding, there was queues forming at the stairwells, and 46% of the time the 405 trains left the station full to crush load. Making the journey between Lexington 59th Street, 14th Street, Union Square on the 405. The average schedule time is supposed to be 8 minutes, 36 seconds. Roughly that's about 17 miles per hour. However, we found that the actual travel time was almost double that at 15 minutes, 47 seconds, and that's roughly traveling at 9 miles per hour. At Queensboro Plaza, Grand Central, and 14th Street, we had extended dwell times. 14th Street and Grand Central being the highest. Transit usually tries to aim for the longest dwell time to be 45 seconds, and these are just averages. Some of them can be up to 4 to 5 minutes. So that this is something that contributes to the overall trip time. Now we're switching into the PM peak. So why is the PM peak so difficult, and why is it so crowded? The Lexington line onboard crowding was quite frequent. The Lexington 59th Street station's NRW platform had excessive crowding. That's when people coming from the 4, 5, 6 lines in both directions are making their way back to Queens and getting onto this narrow bi-directional platform. Lex 59th Street station, because of this and irregular service, had long transfer times. And again, they extended dwell times at 14th Street, Grand Central, and Queensboro Plaza. So, this is the trip in its entirety. Scheduled time is 38 minutes. The actual average time a little bit less than that, 35 minutes. But again, remember this is weighted. The fastest trip time, we know it can make it in 28 minutes, 10 minutes less than what is scheduled. However, 30% of those actual trips are above the scheduled time. And in order to figure out what is the most reliable trip, we applied a buffer time of nearly 9 minutes, so that your most reliable trip would take nearly 45 minutes. All right, so Lexington Avenue line. Basically, all the stations from basically Wall Street up to 59th Street were quite crowded. The trains were so crowded at Fulton that 27% of the time people could not board the trains. 17% at Brooklyn Bridge, 20% at 14th Street, and then it starts to taper off a little bit at Grand Central. A lot of people get off at Grand Central, some people do get on, but the crowding onboard trains lessens a bit as you get close to Lex 59. But then that all changes when you get to the most stressful part of this trip, which is really highlighted in this report, is the crowding at the Lex 59th Street station. Again, to reiterate, you have the 4, 5, 6s north and southbound coming into the station. Because of the growth in Queens and everything, you have all these people trying to get onto the Queensbound platform, and it becomes really unruly. And there's pictures all throughout the report of showing about how extreme it can be. Basically, 34% of the time there were long platform waits because of irregular service on the NWR lines, and 20% of the time there was extreme platform crowding. One of my transfer times was 36 minutes, and because of switch problems at 34th Street. And you can only imagine people's frustration levels at that point, because this is a main portal into Queens, that it became quite unruly. In fact, there's a picture in the report somewhere where a lady actually is in the stairwell, she can't get out, and so she's tall enough where she gets onto the railing of where the stairs are. She gets onto the railing, she climbs over to get on her train, and people just watch her as we're waiting as multiple trains go by, and she makes her train. So, but that's really unsafe, and it poses a very big safety issue at this station. And then once again, extended dwell times at the same stations, 14th Street, Grand Central, and Queensboro Plaza. So what causes the overcrowding, the long transfers, slow trip speeds, and the inconsistent travel times? There's a lot that goes into this. The Story Tip Bar's terminal track configuration is inefficient. Complex routing and interlockings cause slotting and crossover problems. Lack of CBTC. Train speeds and signal timers. 14th Street Union Square platform gap fillers. Nose Turn Junction train conflicts. The Lex 59th Street station complexity and capacity constraints. We're almost done.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, I missed what you said there, the last one.
The Lex 59th Street station complexity and capacity constraints.
Okay, thank you.
Lack of crowd control mitigations at the station. Lack of passenger-based crowding metrics. And poor parallel surface transportation, aka slow buses. So this here is a look. What we wanted to do is we wanted to see the efforts of the subway action plan and look over time to see how things have either gotten better or worse. And I'm going to turn this over to Ellen because this is her.
One of the things about the subway action plan, and I think, Andrew, you can speak to this, is their approach to it was they used heat maps to see where the most extreme problems were. And as you can see on the 4-5 line, signals was at 51 signal major delays in, what was it, 2016, and the people on tracks was 49. And so that those got addressed as much as they could and dropped down to 40 major delays. And then in 2018, 36 major delays from the signals. But you can see they start to, the 40 to 36 major delays, there's only so much they can do without actually installing CBTC. And they also put the action teams for the people-related incidents on the 4-5 on the system, and that's made tremendous improvements
And
also.
removal of those artificial timers too.
Well, that's the thing. The save seconds, move trains faster, but in terms of the capital program and fast forward and what's causing those major delays, you can see here. At the same time, I think when they had those heat maps, the numbers for the NNW were much less. And so they may not have gotten the same attention out of the subway action plan, given it was a limited amount of money. And you can see their signals are just increasing dramatically in the major delays. And also, we're still looking into, but it's possible, the number of delays from track problems. They rapidly installed continuous welded rail on the 4-5, and so you saw major delays really declining on the 4-5 from that. But
everyone else?
Excuse me, I'm going to interrupt about something because the Lexington Avenue line is the 4, 5, and 6. Everything you've talked about, whether it's the platform overcrowding, whether it's the wait time, also has to do with the 6th.
Right,
Because
I'm gonna-
people who come in,
Judy, hold
I
on.
understand
There's
that,
a
I'm
reason
gonna
for that.
answer that right now.
what is,
The problem is my route encompassed the 4 or 5, it didn't encompass the 6, so I
excuse
didn't
me, when you
accurately
get to
report on that.
59th Street, you could have switched over to the 6th.
But I wouldn't
to
do
know-
that. A
But
writer doesn't do that.
then it is inaccurate, because
No, it's not
everything
true.
No,
that
it
is.
actually
The,
isn't.
the route that was studied is accurate. Can we please
Then
let Bradley
don't
finish?
call it
Hold
the
on.
Lexington Avenue route,
Okay, we'll call it
because
the
the
4-5.
Lexington, and when you talk about
Judy,
subway
can we
crowding.
please finish? And then we can
We're
have this
taking
conversation
notes.
after.
Yes.
We're all writing things down.
Okay,
Thank
then
you.
I would like to be the first one to speak, because
Okay. All right, got it.
I should have, I was gonna write this all out, and it became too
Okay,
much.
let us finish the presentation
Fine.
and so we can then get to your questions.
It's
Thank you.
not questions, it's a big comment.
But in terms of what the subway action plan, the purpose of this slide is to help folks understand what it has been able to accomplish, what it still has to do at moving into the fast forward program. I'll be back to you.
Okay. All right, so what we wanted to do is we wanted to see the success of the subway action plan. And looking at the real-time data, we compared 2017 to 2018. And this is the travel time between between Lex 59th Street and Bowling Green. So for 2017, we have the scheduled travel time, approximately a little bit over 19 minutes. But the actual travel time was over 22 minutes. So there was a major gap in this. However, they made adjustments to the run times in 2018. So as you can see that the scheduled and the actual average travel times are very much more aligned. So this helps create a more reliable trip for riders. Same for the PM peak, that we wanted to see the success of the subway action plan. That the scheduled time is roughly a little bit under 18 minutes, but the actual average time is over 20 minutes. They made some gains in 2018 by getting these to align a little bit better with the scheduled travel time and the average actual time a little bit closer together. So, is the subway action plan, was it enough? No. Is it a step in the right direction? Definitely. Is there more work to be done? Of course. And that feeds into fast forward.
Should have put yes in green, it would have been more.
Yeah. We'll write that
And
down.
then we're gonna change it to definitely and of course.
So basically what we wanted to do is look at the principles that are presented in Fast Forward and apply it to this route to see what can be done to make this route better. Currently, transit is planning to increase 4 or 5 train speeds south of 14th Street and also doubling NW train speeds going in and out of the Astoria Ditmars terminal. Fast Forward, the components of Fast Forward that address our route include upgrading critical infrastructure, review potential route changes, revitalize the station experience, accelerate accessibility, and give buses greater priority in the face of traffic. And I'll explain that one later. So the first problem is the track configuration at Astoria Ditmars. So what we're calling for is to reconfigure the Astoria Ditmars terminal tracks to improve train throughput. Currently, they are able at the 8 a.m. hour to turn 14 trains at the terminal. This could be improved up to 19 to 24 trains, which would reduce the headway from 4 minutes down to a possible 2.5 minute headway. This will help make the trip more reliable and reduce crowding at the stations.
Why haven't they done it?
Huh?
Why haven't they done it?
Money.
Money.
There's more.
Yeah.
Go ahead, there's more.
Another problem is the complex routing and interlockings, which cause slotting and crossover problems. So what we're proposing, and it's just conceptual and it is bold, but a reroute to the NR lines to simplify the routes in the Manhattan side. Currently, this is kind of hard to see, so I'll make this bigger next time. The current plan, you have 3 trains going into the Lex 59th Street station, and that's our focus point on this. You have what we call the platform shuffle because you have the N's and the W's going to Astoria, and you have the R's going out on Queens Boulevard. When the station is so crowded, you have people trying to board these already crowded trains, people trying to get off, and we call it the platform shuffle, and people do not get out of the way, so it makes a very intense situation. So what we're calling for conceptually is
More courtesy, right, Brian?
yeah, is the alternative one, reroute, which this one, what we're calling for is the ends to go up to 96th Street to follow the queue, and you would have W service increase going to Astoria. What this does for the Lex 59th Street station is it peels off one of the lines from the station, so you just have the R and W. It also makes the trip more reliable and the throughput through the station more reliable because you're getting rid of the interlocking delays at 34th Street. And you're also adding service to 2nd Avenue line by rerouting the N. Another reroute that we are proposing is to have the N follow the F, and it would go into the Queens Boulevard line and making local stops in Queens. Then at the Lex 59th Street station, you would have the R's and the W's actually going up to Astoria. That way, that gets rid of the platform shuffle because all of those trains are going in the same direction, so you can board whatever train comes first and don't have to deal with the crowding issues, hopefully. It also gets rid of the interlocking delays at 34th Street and also near Queensboro Plaza. So we like both of these alternatives. We are not the experts, but it would be great for transit to think in this direction to help make this trip more reliable by looking at some possible reroutes, which is detailed in the Fast Forward plan. All right, another problem is lack of CBTC. Fast Forward plan is calling for the implementation of CBTC in the 4, 5, 6 lines within the first 5 years, so of course we're going to support that. Another problem are the track speeds and signal timers, so we want them to continue with their Save Seconds campaign in order to improve track speeds and adjust signal timers when needed. Another problem is the 14th Street platform gap fillers. So what we're calling for them to do is to evaluate moving the southbound 4-5 platform north to the straight track area. That way you could get rid of the gap fillers. Benefits, it maximizes 4-5 capacity, reliability, resiliency, and provides improved and safety. Thank you. That was supposed to be changed. Another problem is the no-string junction train conflicts. What we're calling for is to reroute the trains, the 2, 3, and 4, 5s to avoid these conflicts. Right now you have the 2 and 5 going to Flatbush, and you have the 4 and 3 going to Crown Heights and New Lots. What we're calling for is to keep the lines together. You can have the 4 5s going out to Crown Heights and New Lots, and then you can have the 2 3s going to Flatbush Avenue. Another problem we encountered, as mentioned before, is the crowding conditions at the Lex 59th Street station. So what we're wanting them to do is to apply the methodology and resources that were applied to the Grand Central station in order to better address the crowding and levels of service issues. There is a lack of crowd control mitigations, so we'd like to see an establishment of the Lex 59th Street Station crowd control mitigation plan with additional platform controllers. London Underground